Welcome to the 2020 season of the Detroit Free Press Breakfast Club. I'm Peter Bhatia, the editor of the Free Press, and it's my pleasure to get this morning's program underway. We launched this speaker series last year to further discussion on important issues facing Detroit, our region, and the state. So far, so good, as we sold out all three events last year, and the same is the case this morning. Our conversation today is entitled Regional Transit, A New Era. It's an issue we all know is vital to Southeast Michigan, and the conversation this morning should give us new insight on what is possible in 2020 and beyond. I want to thank our five panelists: Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan, Wayne County Executive Warren Evans, Macomb County Executive Mark Hackel, Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter, and Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners Chairman Jason Morgan for taking the time to be here this morning and for helping us kick off our new season. Any event like this takes a special team to make it happen, so a special shout out and thanks to my friends and colleagues in Michigan.com's marketing department led by Aaron Veldhoven. Aaron, Amy, Katie, Kevin, Olivia, everybody else, thanks for your efforts and hard work. It really is a pleasure to work with you every day. And of course, thanks again to the Townsend Hotel staff for their hospitality. And now I'd like to just take a minute to acknowledge our loyal sponsors without whom this event could not take place. I'll ask you to give them a round of applause when we complete the list. Our presenting sponsor is DTE. Our associate sponsor is PVS Chemicals. Our program sponsors are AAA, the Auto Club Group, Deloitte, Grand Valley State University, Detroit Auto Dealers Association, Health Alliance Plan, Detroit Regional LGBT Chamber, and, of course, CBS 62. Please join me in thanking them. And also a huge thanks to all of our table sponsors this morning and to Plantera, who is responsible for the table centerpieces. One special welcome this morning to guests at the DPS Foundation's table. They are here thanks to the support of DTE. We're happy to welcome students from the Frederick Douglass Academy for Young Men. Thanks to DPS Foundation President and CEO Pamela Moore for facilitating this. I think the students are back in the far right-hand corner. Would you mind standing up and being recognized? Welcome. So now I'd like to invite Trevor Lauer, DTE Electric Company's President and CEO, to come to the stage and say a few words. Trevor.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. It's a great crowd after a three-day weekend, and everybody was pretty anxious to get here this morning. The DTE Foundation has been a proud sponsor of this event for 2 years, and it has been a great series of crucial conversations about our region. And I think this morning's another great example of things that we need to talk about as a region, and that's regional transit. When you look at the Southeast Michigan region over the past 10 years, we've made a huge amount of progress, whether it's low economic unemployment levels, stronger communities. We have a sense of renewed collaboration that we haven't had in a long time. And if we think about how we make that next step to becoming a really cool region and a really cool city where all of our young children and people want to stay, we at DTE believe regional transit's an important piece of that. I like to tell the story about when I started my career in DC in 1986. It seems like a long time ago. I did not have a car. And regional transit was a huge piece of my ability not only to get from where I lived to where I worked, but also to enjoy all the wonderful things that the region had to enjoy. We think that's a really important conversation that needs to happen here in Southeast Michigan. When you think about the conversation that's going, it's starting in Lansing, and I know we have 5 esteemed speakers this morning that'll talk about it. I know I'm certainly interested in listening to hear what they say. I hope all of you enjoy the conversation also, and I would just say on behalf of the DTE Foundation, thanks so much for coming out this morning and joining us. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much. So for those of you who are new to the Breakfast Club, we'll start with a question and answer session with our panel in response to questions that are posed by our moderator, Carol Kane. There's also a chance for you to be involved. Should be index cards on all the tables. Please write down your questions, and Amy Rosner from Michigan.com, who's waving in the back, will gather them up, and I then get to sift through them and throw out, the ones that are inappropriate. And so you have to trust my judgment on that, I guess. And then we'll ask some of those as time permits after the Q&A is finished. As always, we'll adjourn promptly by 9 o'clock. Now it's time to turn this over to Carol Kane, Free Press columnist and host of CBS 62's Michigan Matters. Carol has a long history with the Free Press. She likes to remind me that she appeared in the paper's Ruth Alden Dress Drive community ad campaign when she was in the 3rd grade, which is, 10 or 15 years ago. Today, she writes a column weekly that's a fixture of our Sunday business section, and of course, she's the producer and host of CBS 62's 11-time Emmy-winning Michigan Matters and CBS 62's Eye on the Future TV specials. Carol's been the guiding force in making the Breakfast Club forums happen. So, away we go. Carol, the stage is yours.
Wait. I want to ask you a question. Come with me. Come with me. I want to ask you a question. So there's no way I can have Peter here, who has won, a dozen Pulitzer Prizes?
Well, not quite that many.
All right, close to, more than anybody, except maybe Jim Schaefer over at the Detroit Free Press table has one. But you have been here, 2 years now?
2.5. Yeah.
2.5. So I'm just curious, from someone who came in here with all the news going on, your thoughts about Detroit real quick, and as a news town.
Wow, that's all?
That's it. And your next answer is how to fix regional transit.
Yeah, well, I know how I'm voting, but I tell people all the time as I travel around the country and talk to my colleagues in the news business and for our parent company, Gannett, that Detroit is the best news town in the country, except for maybe New York City. And the reason for that is this is such a dynamic, interesting place. Yeah, all of our sports teams are terrible, but there's so much going on here all the time, every day. There's so much change. There are the eternal struggles that we have. There is the amazing comeback downtown. There is an economy that is incredibly diverse, getting to cover the auto industry, which of course is a special focus of ours at the Free Press. There's no place like this in the country. The other thing that I tell people is people from Detroit and here in Detroit care more about this place than anywhere else I've lived in the country. And I've lived in every time zone. I grew up on the West Coast. I worked in San Francisco, Dallas, Portland, a lot of other cities. No place cares about the place where people live as much as Detroit does. And that makes this place incredibly special. And everywhere when I go, I've told this story many times. I was out in Scottsdale on vacation and ordered Uber Eats, and the kid who's delivering it shows up and is wearing a Tigers cap. And we end up having a 10-minute conversation about Detroit. That doesn't happen with other places. He moved to Scottsdale because he couldn't stand the winter, which, who can blame him? But, and that shows in our audience. We have an enormous digital audience for the Free Press, and half of it is outside of Michigan. And that's all the Michigan expats, all the Detroit expats around the country who care so passionately about this place. So I consider, thanks for asking, I consider this an incredible joy to be the editor of the Free Press and to live in this city. It's amazing. So,
well, thank you, Peter. I thought you were going to say the young man moved to Scottsdale to get away from the Detroit Tigers team. We're waiting for a championship. Denise, no pun intended here, wherever you are. I know Denise is out there somewhere. But thank you very much, Peter, for that. And good morning to everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here and getting up at the crack of dawn to be here, to be part of this. We know this is such an important issue to so many people here. And before I dive in, I just wanted to also give some quick applause to the Michigan.com team, Aaron, Amy, Katie, Kevin, and Olivia, for their help with this morning's event. Anyone who does this knows it takes a village to raise a speaker series. And also, thanks again to all the sponsors. Peter mentioned them, and it's because of your partnership that we're able to bring these important topics to light and hopefully move some of these conversations forward. I also wanted to acknowledge some of our elected officials in the audience, Representative Haley Stevens and Debbie Dingle. Can you both stand? And are there other elected officials here? Please stand if others are here. Here we go. There we go. Please stand and be acknowledged. There we go. And I know you're all, I know every elected official in this room has a collective thought on their mind. Thank God I'm not a senator right now. So, reminder, we're going to begin this event, and Amy will be collecting cards. Amy's in back, so if you have them, look for her, pass them over, and we'll be certain to get to some of those. As I wrote in my Free Press column when we announced this event some weeks ago, the discussion on the future of man transit is truly as old as Father Time. For the longest time, our region's failure to come up with a solution, a comprehensive solution, really hasn't been that much of a deterrent to our growth. But folks, we all know that's changed and is changing. Companies across the globe are factoring in their decisions to move portions of or all their businesses to communities that have the ability to move lots of people efficiently and quickly. It's not only important to their companies, their employees, but potential employee base as well. We know millennials in particular mention this over and over again. In recent years, we have been making some inroads on this, but we keep coming up short on coming up with a solution. Well, this morning, with a new configuration of leadership in this discussion, we'll see if we can peel back the onion a bit and determine whether this new dialogue has a chance of bearing any fruit, and we'll likely get to a few other issues as well. So without further ado, let me bring up our panel. First up, none of these gentlemen needs much of an introduction, but I'm going to do it anyways. There aren't a lot of issues here that Michael Edward Duggan isn't the elder statesman on. He's been dealing with mass transit and its future long before he was elected mayor in 2013. He previously served as GM of SMART. He also was CEO of DMC, Deputy County Executive, and County Prosecutor. Has perhaps one of the most eclectic resumes in the room. Please welcome to the stage Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan. Since his election in 2014, our next panelist has taken the fortunes of his county, balanced its books, and stabilized some, troubling circumstances he inherited when he took over. He previously served as the Chief of Police in Detroit and Wayne County Sheriff. Please welcome Wayne County Executive Warren Evans. Our next panelist was elected in 2010 to his current position. He also comes from the world of law enforcement as Sheriff of Macomb County and armed, no pun intended, of course, with the discipline and rigor that his profession has given him. He's taken his county, when it changed to an executive form of government, to its best economic status in some time. Let's welcome Macomb County Executive Mark Hackel. And the new kid on the Big Four block hails from Ferndale, where as its mayor, he developed hands-on experience in government that has certainly served him well as he's tackled this new challenge before him. Please, it's a love fest over here. We've got this on tape, too. We're going to save this and bring this up as this conversation continues. The two sheriffs, are you guys packing, by the way? Okay, all righty. So put your hands together for Oakland County Executive David Coulter. And as this conversation on regional mass transit has intensified, so too has the growth of this important area of Southeast Michigan and the importance of its ability to contribute to this overall discussion. He previously worked for Congressman John Dingell and Debbie Dingell and is representing Washtenaw County, my home county, as the Board of Commissioner Chairman. Let's welcome Jason Morgan. So, gentlemen, we're going to take a deep dive, as deep as we can, on this topic of regional mass transit. But I figure it's been 3 years, I believe, since the Big Four last gathered. Lots has changed. Brooks Patterson is gone and probably looking down upon us right now. I'm waiting, Margaret. I'm thinking for sure you were going to say something to that, but I'll leave that alone. And Dave Coulter is the new Oakland County Executive, and we've added Washtenaw County to the panel for this discussion. So I'm going to give you each a chance to quickly, meaning 60 seconds or less, give us the headline on how your city or county is doing. And Jason, as the newest person up here, why don't you give us a quick headline on Washtenaw?
Thank you so much, Carol. It's great to be with you all. I'm probably a newer face to many of you, but Washtenaw County is doing very well. We have a strong economy. We have a low unemployment rate. We have a AAA bond rating. When you look at all of the metrics of how a county is doing, we're doing very, very well. But we still have challenges that we're facing in terms of mobility and transit and accessibility for all of our residents. along with all these great metrics that we have, we also have growing economic inequality and racial inequality in our community. And so we like to acknowledge that, not because we're necessarily proud of that as a factor of our county, but because we know what we need to work on. And I think this discussion around transit will be a very good discussion, because that is one of our huge challenges for our community that touches all these other aspects of what we need to do to improve the quality of life for our residents. So we're very excited to be part of this discussion and to be with you all today. Thank you.
Dave?
So things are great in Oakland County on the one hand. I inherited a wonderful budget, a AAA bond rating, so I like to say, you know, I didn't enter a broken system, and it's wonderful. And we were able to, in my first month in office, adopt a 3-year balanced budget that I hope will continue our AAA bond rating history. So on that level, things are very well, and the quality of life in Oakland County continues to be excellent. But I'm going to echo a little bit about what Jason said. I mean, I think they pay us to worry about the challenges as much as promote the things that are going well. And when I look around the county, I see some challenges that I think are regional in nature, and some of the things that we can work on together. You know, our region isn't growing, and our peer regions in the country are, and it is hindering us. So we have to figure out how we begin to grow the population of Southeast Michigan in a way that sustains us for the future. The other thing I hear a lot when I talk to companies in Oakland County is we'd hire more people if there were more skilled people to hire. So when you talk about workforce development, we have a workforce shortage in this region, and this is another issue. And I think these things are related to transit, but they're also independent. But it just speaks to the fact that there are big, important issues for Southeast Michigan, in addition to transit, that I believe we can have a conversation about that's going to lift our entire region up, including Oakland County.
Mark?
It was difficult leaving this morning. Again, Macomb County on the other side of DeQuinder. It was 70 degrees, balmy. Maybe next year we can have this event there. A little cold in Oakland County. But with that being said, we're fortunate. Macomb County, we've got a lot to be excited about. And I say that because if you look at the numbers, and I use that as kind of a baseline, our employment numbers. I mean, we have the largest numbers in workforce in our history in the county. Unemployment is extremely low. Manufacturing jobs, I was just talking to Haley Stevens about that just a few minutes ago. It's incredible how far we've come, and over an 8-year period we thought manufacturing was on the decline. The rebounding of that has set us up as Macomb County being the #1 county in the entire country as far as job growth in manufacturing. With that being said, I mean, we're seeing incredible increases in people's educational attainment. People's household incomes are rising in Macomb County. There's a lot of exciting things happening in Macomb County, the population base. In fact, today, when we talk about people moving into Macomb County, over 870,000 people are now living in Macomb County, and 1 in 9 of those people were born outside the United States. So to Dave's point, yeah, that's an important thing. We don't want to see the shifting of population within the region. We want to try to figure out how do we attract people from other regions, from around the globe into this area. And I think there's a lot of conversation that should be regional as to how do we do that, and how do we get people to want to make, you know, Macomb their home, but not only Macomb, this region, someplace they do want to call their home. So yeah, there's a lot of challenging questions, concerns that are going to come up about transit. Macomb County, again, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I've got to highlight that. We're the only county that has every community that has supported transit from day one over a quarter century ago.
Mark, hold that thought.
So-
We're going to get to
Again,
it. You're getting ahead
but
of
I
us
want to
there.
make sure
Hold
we
that
kind of lay
thought.
that. I will hold that
All
thought.
right.
But again, there's a lot of good things that are happening in Macomb County, challenges to be met individually as a county and as a region, and we're going to continue those conversations like we will here today. Thank you.
Warren Evans?
And I think I can say that, you know, Wayne County's come an awful long way in the last 5 years. We've had balanced budgets every year. We've had surpluses every year. Economic development has taken off in a significant way around the airport. We expect that will continue to grow. We're putting more resources in economic development so that the Detroit Regional Partnership, if they get the hook out and bring it in a little bit, we can close. And so we're doing well. We're never going to be a Macomb County, obviously, right?
You're there. You're there.
Because we got Mark, but we're doing well. And I think all you know, jokes aside, we're all doing well. When you hear the mayor speak in a minute, this is a cut in time where the entire region is being managed with some fiscal responsibility and on most issues, working largely in the right direction. And that, you know, sometimes the stars align and sometimes they don't, but they look like they're aligned now for a number of reasons. And we all, I think, are putting our best foot forward towards the things that we think are critically important. So I know I enjoy working with the entire panel, and we'll continue to do that.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, the focus for us has changed. Next month, I will present to City Council the 2021 budget. It will be the 6th straight balanced budget in the city of Detroit. So you think about how fresh bankruptcy is in
Oh,
people's
yeah.
memory. The fact is, it was 6 years in a row now. And so we're not talking much about the finances. I take that as a given. The unemployment rate went from 19% when I started to 7% today. It is still more than double the unemployment rate of the surrounding counties. And there is an inequity issue there that's a huge one. And we're going at it in a lot of different ways. There's folks in this room who have been a big part of the recovery. But you go over in East Jefferson now, and there's a $2.5 billion Jeep assembly plant that's hiring 5,000 people. Ford Motor Company at the train station is putting $750 million into building that innovation center. Waymo is installing their self-driving vehicle systems in the city of Detroit at a plant, and I expect General Motors is going to have a pretty big announcement in the next week. And so we're trying to rebuild. For those who thought manufacturing was dead, we're trying to rebuild this economy in a way that everybody benefits. But I think, as Dave Coulter said, as a region, we are not competing with other regions. We are not growing population as a region, and we're about to lose a congressperson. We've got 3 of them in this room. We're about to lose a congressperson in this next census again in the state of Michigan. And at some point, we got to wake up and say the fact that we're losing population relative to just about every other state in the country, we're not doing something right here. And hopefully, we're going to talk what we do about that.
So, Mr. Mayor, you're amongst a few friends here in the room and lots of folks looking in. GM, anything you want to share with the class?
You know, John Blanchard's here if he wants to answer that question.
To put you on the spot.
He's good with that. Okay, we'll leave our
Okay.
friends over at the GM table alone. So let's, that was
John's
a
over
nice
there.
out. So let's dive in on the issue that folks here are in this room so early to hear a little bit about. And irrespective of where you stand on this issue, there's one undeniable thing, that every major city has methods of moving people around their region beyond simply buses. This is not a statement for or against additional mass transit or what we're talking about. Those are the facts, folks. So, Jason, let me ask you, since you're the newbie as far as this conversation, coming into this conversation, why is it so important for Washtenaw to connect to neighboring counties? And the fact that so much of the county is the furthest distance, will that make this an easier sell as far as with folks that are going to have to be sold on this? And we're going to get to the specifics of the plan in a moment.
All right, I'll try and be brief so Carol doesn't give me the hook here. I mean, for Washtenaw County, transit is not only something that we support on a just inherently moral level, because we believe that people should have access to affordable public transportation, to access jobs and employment and healthcare. I mean, all of these things that are just the natural benefits of transit. But when we look at the other issues that we're dealing with in the county, as I mentioned, in terms of economic inequality and sort of the equitable growth of our communities, transit is a central part of that. When we look at affordable housing, transit has a huge role in terms of making housing more accessible and affordable. When we look at our connections to the rest of the region, when I look at the map, the regional transit maps that have been drafted in the past, there's this huge area between Washtenaw and Wayne County that there's incredible opportunity in. And I think the more connected we are, the more we can grow that part of our community. The east side of Washtenaw County and the west side of Wayne County have a lot of things in common. And so the more that we work together, not just in transit, but in all of these other areas, I think we can certainly benefit from that, and we can all lift everybody's boat together.
Mr. Mayor, as noted, you also ran SMART. You've been part of this conversation for many years. It's easy to say that previous Oakland County leadership maybe wasn't as interested in mass transit, obviously beyond SMART, but this goes a lot deeper. And as someone who's been dealing with this issue for many years, what other challenges have you experienced in this?
Well, I was the general manager of SMART, and at the time, as Mark Ackle noted, Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb all came together and put an issue on the ballot to basically save a basic bus system. But we are competing with regions around this country. And you look at just basic demographics, it just amazes me that we can close our eyes to this, but in the United States in 2035, there will be more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 17. That's 2035 in the country. It's going to happen in Michigan in 2025. Okay, we are not dealing with the age of the population, and for a number of years, up until very recently, college graduates net leaving the state, we were second worst in the country. The only one worse was Alaska. The only state people, college grads were more anxious to get out of the state. And so you think about what kind of region do we want to build? These young people are a different breed. They are not rushing to the Secretary of State when they're 16 years old. They don't want to give up their text messages long enough to drive. They don't. And all of the auto companies realize this as they move to mobility. And so I look at Denver that has built out a huge regional system. I look at Columbus, Ohio, that is leading the country in regional transit and is growing. And I look at southeastern Michigan and say, where's the vision? When you've got an aging population and seniors who are going to need mobility, and you have at the same time a need to appeal to this younger generation that wants mobility, if we had any sense as a region, we'd be saying, how do we compete with the best areas of the country, with the best transit system, instead of fighting with each other all the time? And it's really holding us back.
Dave Coulter, let me dive in with you because you have been a supporter of regional transit. As mayor of Ferndale, you're now in as the Oakland County executive. We know in the 2016 vote, Oakland was defeated narrowly in Oakland, but very close in the northern portion of the county in particular. So my question to you is, how are you going to explain, and again, we're going to get to this transit plan, the specifics of this next, but how are you going to explain this to Oakland County voters, particularly folks who are not fans of this, even doing anything else?
Yeah. Well, we're going to start with the bigger picture that the mayor alluded to, which is the population and the quality of life in this region. So that even if you aren't someone who perceives yourself as going to use the transit, that you understand that if we want to attract young people or keep them in our region, then we have to start providing services that they want. And by the way, if you look at our peer regions across the country, it's not New York and LA, it's more like Pittsburgh and Indianapolis. All of these regions have invested in transit. Their population over the last decade has increased 17%. Ours is flat. This is a piece of why that's true. Now, yes, it's a tougher sell when you're not right. It's easy for the mayor of Ferndale, who has Woodward running right through it, to sell transit there. But there are other reasons that people should, I think, embrace transit. Some of them is these quality of life issues. Seniors, the mayor referred to the aging population. We're going to, our population is aging dramatically, and seniors and people with disability rely on this. So I do think it's a moral issue to make sure that all of our residents have access to this transit and some kind of transportation. But it's also an economic issue. 40% of the people, I don't want to sit here and spout stats all day, but get this, 40% of the workers in Oakland County don't live in Oakland County. So they got to get there from somewhere. They live in Macomb, and they live in Wayne County in the city of Detroit. And we don't move them around efficiently. And more, they're asking for this option. The mayor is absolutely right. When I turned 16, I wanted a car more than anything. But that's not what my nephews want. That's not what they're thinking about. They want other ways to get around. They want other ways to get to work. Mm-hmm. And if we don't start responding to that desire, we're going to continue to stagnate as a region.
Warren Evans, everybody in the room, because this is a heavy business crowd, knows about the Amazon example, the fact they did not choose the region. They cited lack of meaningful regional transit as one of the reasons, talent being the other ones. But you're also privy to a lot of companies who are seeking, maybe kicking the tires around the Southeast Michigan and businesses who also are mentioning the lack of mass transit here. Given that economic development is a goal, it helps communities, it brings bigger tax base, more monies, quality of life. How do you think that we haven't been able to jumpstart this conversation and having more people buying into this?
I think fundamentally one of the problems is people like to speak of a region in general terms, and then when that region becomes an area where a specific part of it is not as interested in something as the rest, then we want to go back to being local. you know, I think we have to absorb regionalism in a way that we really haven't done a particularly good job of. I mean, we talk about our economy and the way we are running our shops, and I think we're doing a good job, but the reality is, what's already been said, the region is not growing, and there's a reason that it's not growing. There's a reason why at one point we were the 5th largest city, Detroit, and now we're the 18th. You know, having a robust economy with what you have is not the same as growing a robust economy around the kinds of things that need to happen, and transit is certainly one of those. And so I think there has to be a reality check with people. I mean, as both Mike and Dave have said, millennials want transit, and Detroit is the place to be now for social things and other sorts of things, and they want to come down to Detroit. Now, you can make them drive down and pay $20 for parking and force them to move, or you can give them the opportunity to come in through transit, see what's here, and still stay in the communities that they live in. I mean, all of these factors are important to regional growth. So I don't think we get too hung up on how good a job we're doing with what we have. I think, as Mike and others have said, we have to see that trajectory and the vision for the future.
So the 4 out of 5 of you announced in November a plan to try to amend the mass transit, to try to put the Municipal Partnership Act and put forth the House Bill 5229. And a lot of people are calling it a regional transit bill. But Mr. Mayor, why don't you explain a little bit, because I know there's been so much written and reported. I know there's a lot of misinformation as well. In a nutshell, how do you explain what it is that is trying to be done here?
Well, the RTA, the Regional Transit Authority, was legislation put together basically by Brooks Patterson, Mark Hackle, and Bob Ficano about 7 or 8 years ago, and said we are going to vote as an entire 4-county region, up or down. Things have changed since that time that have caused dynamics to be different ways, and so Dave Coulter was good enough to cook shrimp pasta and invite Warren and Mark and me to his house to say, what do we do about this? And the conversation that came out was this: we should be able, as a region, to partner up however we want. And Mark Hackle says, look, in Macomb right now, we're not really focused on this right now, but we don't want to hold up the rest of you. Whereas in Wayne and Washington and Oakland, we think we're ready to go on a regional transit system. And so what we agreed to is the bill that's been put forward that just basically says any county that wants to can come in and partner, not just on transit, but on any other range of services as well. And so this wasn't any effort to leave anybody out. We hope Macomb comes in right now. If they don't, and this takes off, and you start to see growth, in 2 years and 4 years, Macomb could come in. So it was very simple. And each county can decide what the boundaries are of their service area. The old Transit Authority law allowed every city to opt in or out. You end up with a checkerboard. It's complete nonsense of a bill. You couldn't have that again. I think we all agree on that. And so we put forth something that was so simple, I didn't think anybody could possibly be against it. Let the county board of commissioners decide what part of their counties can be in and take the issue to the voters. Who could be against that? And yet, we haven't moved it out of a single house.
So before I move on, inquiring minds want to know, Dave Coulter as a cook, could he beat Bobby Flay?
I know
pretty close.
He could beat
Pretty
Brooks
close.
Patterson. I know that.
So Dave, you were looking there. Was something you were going to add to this?
Just that Mark brought an incredible pie and Warren brought wine, so it was a team effort.
Mike brought an appetite. Sorry.
So Mark, this plan does not include Macomb at this time, as has been noted. While you are not opposed to this and can opt in later, your thoughts on letting this go forward without you and Macomb?
See, I think that's the, if there's a takeaway from this, Macomb is not being discounted. Macomb is not being taken out of the mix. As Mike had mentioned, the Municipal Partnership Act is completely different than the transit issue. The Municipal Partnership Act allows communities to partner in different things, and obviously the movement to try to allow transit to be a part of that. So it's a separate issue from where we want to move when it comes to transit and agree upon as a region. As was mentioned earlier, over God, almost a quarter century ago when SMART first came into being or existence on this transit, Macomb thought everyone else was going to do the same thing Macomb did, and that was opt in as a county. That didn't happen. The only ones that did was Macomb County. Oakland didn't, Wayne County did not. Macomb said, whether it was the rural areas, the urban areas of Macomb County, we came together, the Board of Commissioners back then in 1994 said, we're going to do this as a county, thinking that's what was going to happen throughout the region with the exception of Detroit and the DDOT. And so we did. And Macomb was all in at the .33 mil. Well, every year since then, over 25 years, anytime there's been an increase or a renewal for that millage, Macomb County has supported it, and the Board of Commissioners have put it on the ballot as an entire county. So we have always supported transit in Macomb County. Now, granted, it might not be the new wave of transit or where we're trying to head with some of these plans from the RTA, but that needs to be the question for the Macomb County voters in value added. Why? Because we're already paying 1 mil. As an entire county, every person who has a house in Macomb County or resides in Macomb County is paying 1 mil. So the question is, what is the additional cost that's coming? We don't have a disconnect. We're not trying to force opt-outs to opt in. We've got everybody who's opted in, and I got to tell you, Robert Kramer's here, and John Hertel's been doing a great job of running it since I've been the county executive. Anytime there's been an ask from anyone in Macomb County, whether it's a senior citizens group, whether it's a community leader, whether it's a commissioner, whether it's myself, for supportive services from SMART, they've been able to provide that. If it's trying to get seniors to and from, up in Memphis, they're taking people to the airport on a call ride basis. They're doing an incredible job in one of the most rural areas of Macomb County. We're turning soft lines into hard lines on Groesbeck right now. We're going to be piloting in some of these communities that first mile, last mile to get people to and from the actual bus stops that are out there. And whatever new wave thing might be coming, Macomb County voters will be interested in that, knowing exactly what the plan is and then what the cost associated with that is. But you can't expect areas that have already opted in either under a 196, meaning communities in Wayne County or Oakland County, who are already paying 1 mil, in the entirety of Macomb County paying 1 mil, just to say, hey, we've got this plan, you need to join in, and it's going to cost you another 1.5. People are saying, hang on a second, we're fully in. We support the rest of the region connecting. But with that being said, what is the value added and what's that cost going to be? I think that's the secondary part of this plan. So if the Municipal Partnership Act goes through and there's support for this, and there's a new plan that comes out, whether it's community by community in Macomb County, because I just had a meeting with all of our stakeholders last Friday talking about this, and they're still welcome to the idea that, hey, let's see what's in it, and then we'll make a determination. Maybe not as entire county, because the rural areas in the north are saying, we're already paying 1 mil, that's enough. But maybe some on the southern end of Macomb County may want to buy into that, and under this MPA, they'll have the ability to do that individually as a community if they wish. So I think the takeaway from this is to understand that Macomb County's always been a leader as a county in transit. And I think that's based upon the facts and based upon the numbers and the fact that we've always had it on the millage. That millage is on the ballot in Macomb County. So we're not the outlier. We're not trying to figure out how do we prevent transit from happening. We've been fully opted in since 1994, over a quarter century, and will continue to support the rest of the region in their efforts to try to, I guess, make that connection better so we can move forward as a region.
Warren Evans, this has some bipartisan support. Jason Shepard, Republican Temperance, is supporting it. The timing of this, it has to go through the House and Senate. I mean, how are you looking at this time-wise, and how optimistic are you about it?
Well, we don't have a lot of time if we're going to get it on the ballot this coming year. But a couple of things, I'm digressing from your question a little bit. I think all of us up here get what Mark just said. And one of the reasons that we sat down and talked was, at least in my mind, I wanted to make sure that people didn't see Mark Hackel as anti-transit, but someone who has a different set of circumstances at a different point in time. And so the Municipal Partnership Act may have been a way for us to work together and create that opportunity. So, Mark's got a county with no opt-outs. That's a great thing. And Mark is comfortable with what's there, and I think Mark has a strong pulse of what his county wants, very comfortable with that. Please understand that the Municipal Partnership Act is not a transit plan. It is an opportunity to create a vehicle from which a plan can grow. We've had a couple plans in the last, 3 or 4 years. The first one, I don't think any of us had input in really. The 2016 plan was kind of thrust upon us and asked us to sell it. And, you know, as elected officials with a little bit of wisdom, my grandmother always said, you don't buy a pig in a poke. You know, I need to know what this is, and I need to be involved in it before I start selling it to other people. We have last year worked on a plan that I think is a pretty decent plan, but nobody knows about it. And so until we get the kind of the enabling legislation that allow us to move forward, we can tweak that plan. And obviously, no plan's going to work if we don't support it, and we're not going to support it if it doesn't have benefit for, you know, those in our communities. And so, but again, I mean, my daughter's in Boston because, you know, other folks up here have relatives that are in other places because, and part of that because is because they can't get from one place to the other in a significant way, and because opportunities grow where transit is, and so they go to other locations.
And if I can just follow up on that, I mean, it's interesting because Warren's exactly right. That 2016 plan wasn't a great plan, but yet it still got on the ballot. And it's interesting because, you know, as it did, I thought, okay, I'll let the voters make that determination. We're not going to stand in the way of it. Put it on the ballot, let them decide. But yet, honestly, in my own mind, I'm thinking, I'm not supportive of it. I didn't like the plan. And so without getting out front, I said, let's put it on the ballot. And that was kind of the agreement at the time. Let's not kill it. Let's let the people decide. Well, in Macomb County, as you can imagine, it got obliterated. I mean, it was almost worse than Governor Snyder's proposal for road funding. I mean, it was terrible. It got killed. And when it did, it was interesting to hear the conversation came back. It was because I wasn't out there cheerleading for it, is why it failed in Macomb County. And I thought, wow, I mean, that's a very harsh criticism because, you know, the reality was, you're right, I didn't support it, but I didn't get out there and try to figure out how do we kill it. But leaving it to the voters in Macomb County, they thought, they saw through it. They didn't like the plan. So, as was mentioned earlier, you got to get a pulse and understanding what's going on within your communities, but I can't help but go back to the reality. Macomb County, fortunately, it doesn't matter whether it's the rural areas or those kind of urbanized areas in Macomb County, they have supported transit in totality, and that's a pretty amazing statement if you think about it. The only county probably in the entire state of Michigan where they have a transit tax for every resident in that county. And again, hats off to SMART because they've done a great job of providing the services necessary from each one of those communities. We welcome that moment or that opportunity to fully connect the entire region where we're part of a transit system that can move this region forward. We welcome
Carol, if
that.
I can just add to that, because I agree with Mark, and I've heard a lot since I took this job over in August, that the reason that 2016 plan failed in Oakland County, which it did, not by nearly as much as in Macomb, but it failed there, was because it didn't get strong enough support and leadership from Brooks Patterson. And I've said from the very beginning, I'm not going to accept that as the reason. The plan to me is more important than anything else. And there were flaws in that plan, and I could see those flaws, and I appreciate you guys acknowledging those as well. And as you alluded to, Carol, especially in the north end of our county, where it offered very little for those folks. If I lived in Rose Township or Clarkston, I might not have supported it either. So we don't have a plan yet. That's an important point to make here. We're working on a plan that we can bring to folks. But it wasn't, it was a non-starter for me that we're just going to dust off an old plan and just try to sell it better. I'm right with Mark. I'm not going to get out and campaign for a plan and support a plan that I don't feel in my bones and my heart really moves this region forward. And so until we have that, there won't be a campaign. I hope it's this year. I hope it's in November. But the plan is more important than everything else, including the timing. And the old plan didn't meet that test.
So Carol, I see the look of confusion on people's faces as far as what we're talking about. Well, I want to be really clear on what the Municipal Partnership Act said. The old RTA said all 4 counties are in entirely or nothing. It was a big bang theory.
Yeah.
There's nobody pushing the big bang today. There's no vehicle today to do something else. What the Municipal Partnership Act says is every county can decide what's right for it, and those who are willing go forward. And so Macomb County may say, we don't want to be in. Or Macomb County may say, up in Romeo, Michigan, where they're paying $1 million for an excellent dial-a-ride system, they don't need another mill for buses, but down in Warren we do. Macomb County Board of Commissioners could decide that south of M59 we're opting into the vote, north of M59 we're not. Oakland County can make the same kind of decision. And so what the Municipal Partnership Act says is very simple. It allows each of the counties and the city to decide what geographic area we want to move forward on with a plan, and then we bring the plan forward. And this is why I say, how could anybody be against allowing each of the counties to decide whether they want to be in and what territory they want to be in? That's all we're trying to pass, and can you believe we haven't even had a hearing on it yet? And so it's something that I hope people will say. It doesn't matter if it's 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I guarantee you the regional transit plan that emerges will come out of a process by which each of the counties decides for itself which areas should be included, and I think we ought to move early and not late.
So if I understand this properly, then there's the House bill needs to be passed, from there it goes to the Senate, then it would come back, and then you would take it to your county commissioners, city commissioners, whatever, in terms of coming up with a plan on this? How, in terms of the idea of what would be put forth?
So once the legislation passes and we know we have the authority, we sit down together and propose plans, and we got very good versions. We had, I think, the elements of it in 2018, but we need to go out and talk to folks. We aren't going to drop a plan on Sterling Heights and say we've solved your problem. We're going to say, where are your big needs? Where are your senior needs? What do you need out here in Ferndale? And have those conversations and let the plan evolve out of those conversations. That's how we passed the Smart Millage in 1995, the first time. We spent a whole lot of time listening to communities about what they wanted. It's what we haven't done since. But we can't even start those conversations without a law that gives us a means to do it. And so that's why Warren says it needs to go quickly. We need the bill through so we can start having these conversations. Mark Hackle today does not know whether Macomb is going to be in or out and how big or small they might be. Neither does Dave Coulter. They don't know that today. But after we have conversations with communities, we're going to have an idea, and that's what I think we'd all like to move on to.
And to Mike's point, that's exactly what we did last Friday with the various community leaders. Again, I had state reps, county commissioners, as well as people that are mayors and township supervisors from Macomb County, and explaining this to them, trying to get them to understand what an MPA is, Municipal Partnership Act, versus where we're headed, and what we get from SMART. Macomb County doesn't run SMART. I don't run the organization. And they're a service provider for every one of the communities. 27 distinct municipalities in Macomb County get a service provided to them by SMART. So they're leveraging whatever their needs are and requesting certain aspects, I guess, to enhance what they're getting from SMART. It's been working great, but what we offered them is the opportunity to say, hey, if the Municipal Partnership Act does go through, it's another avenue for you to partner with other communities, other counties. But that's going to be up to you. It's up to you to make a determination. Is there something in whatever this new plan is that you find of interest that you want to go ahead and support and get on board with? And the Board of Commissioners now are going to be tasked with the responsibility of putting it on the ballot for those particular municipalities that want to, or allow them the ability to go ahead and do that through the Municipal Partnership Agreement, the opportunity to do that. So we're not standing in the way as a county. We don't tell people you can't have transit. We've always supported putting it on the village, but also moving forward, it's up to those individual communities that they see value in what might be coming next as to whether or not it's going to be supportive of their needs for people within their various communities.
We know that nobody likes tax increases, and if this passes and goes through all these hoops that need to go through to make this all become a reality, there would be increases. There were stories that came out last week somewhere about a 1.4 mil being for this regional transit tax, and have you had conversations that go that far yet in any of this?
I don't know where that number came from. I saw it too.
Yeah, is this misinformation coming out of the?
It was a
I don't know.
1.5 mil that was kicked around in 2018.
18,
So
right.
something in that range probably gets us to the point of real value increase for the dollars. But what the exact amount would be was something that we'd have to decide together.
So
And,
these are
and
all,
one misinformation that's out there is currently the Municipal Partnership Act lets you tax up to 5 mils. And so a lot of opponents have been saying, well, they want 5 mils for transit. No, it's more in the range of the figure that the mayor quoted. There's no interest in going higher than that. But the municipal partnership for other kinds of projects could allow you to go up that high. So that's been a little bit of a confusion out there.
Well, and Carol, I think the big piece in terms of the amount will depend on what areas are covered under the plan, whether it's all of the counties or just portions of them, and what services people want. I think I heard some folks talk about millennials. I think I may be one of the fewer millennials in the room, and
Thank you for
And-
pointing that out.
Well, and I, you know,
Greatly appreciated.
as if anybody didn't notice.
The tie and the glasses did throw me off.
Right, yeah, thanks.
Sorry.
You know, I'll be 31 this year, and I'm sort of, you know, surprisingly sort of in the upper end of the millennials here. But people don't want the same traditional type of transit system. They want more innovative ideas around not just, you know, last mile is something we've worked on in our communities, but we need last 5 mile. We need more sort of public-private partnership opportunities. We need a lot of more innovative things, and so that'll help us determine what the rate is and what the plan actually looks like. Those community conversations that we all can have in our counties, I think will be the most valuable part of this entire discussion, because particularly for us in Washtenaw County, we're a little different than some of the other counties in that we have AATA, which is our transit provider, which we love, and if you look at the numbers, our community loves, but we only have a portion of our county covered right now. So for us, we're going to need to figure out what is it that our communities and what is it that our residents want, and then work with our partners to develop that together. We really need to figure out what that looks like before there's any idea what number, what number we'd be looking at.
Warren Evans, when you first came into your position and we were doing the Big Four and you inherited a county in disarray with a lot of challenges, you've righted the budget, things are going much better from a financial standpoint here. Another point of this conversation in this having regional transit, supporting potential increase, is having confidence in what would take place here. What would give people confidence again? So often we hear about money's raised for the roads, and you see where does the money go? It goes to other things, only 60% goes towards it, was whatever. So talk a little bit about the confidence in having to convince people that indeed monies that would be raised through this would stay for regional transit and not other pet projects and such.
Yeah, I think the biggest impediment to what you just said, Carol, is not local but national. Nobody trusts elected officials. Nobody feels good about them. That translates down to everything. Now, if you can sit that on the shelf for a minute and someone sits back and analyzes the performance of the people here on the stage on issues, do they do what they say they're going to do? Have they been able to make the tough decisions that need to be made? Then I think there's a level of credibility that you don't see other places. But certainly there's a sell. But I'm comfortable if we're there to be able to sell it, because I think we've created 6 years worth of credibility. If it looks like a duck, it's probably a duck. It looks like you can perform the things that you say you're going to do. There's no real reason why that wouldn't happen here. And fiscal responsibility is a tremendously important part of this. Another thing is, though, Michigan's a donor state when it comes to federal taxes coming back to us. And understand that if we have a plan, if we get to a plan, and we can put the plan in the queue, the federal government, there's an opportunity for some of that money we pay anyway to come back here to subsidize portions of the transit plan. And that's no small item. So until we have a plan,
Yeah.
we just can't do that.
Dave Coulter, you are new to your job. You just started a few months ago. You were mayor. Now you're the county executive. What's the one thing you've learned about this job that you did not know before?
This is a really big county. And I knew that, but it's been impressed on me. We have 20,000 people in Ferndale. We have 1.25 million in Oakland County. So everything is, a magnitude much, much larger. But at the same time, this feels to me, not only in Oakland County is it a historical moment of transition and transformation in my role, but even as a region. If you look, and I think Warren is absolutely right, for the first time in a long time, we're all financially healthy. We're all sort of trying to row in the same direction. Some of the old regional issues have died down. I think we've done a pretty decent job of reducing that 8-mile barrier kind of talk that I grew up with. And I just feel like the stars are maybe aligning. Now, some people, I talked to John Hertel, and he said, Dave, there's been 22 transit plans before this one. With a certain, resignation in his voice. But we have new energy and new leadership and a successful region financially successful region right now, and it just feels like an historic opportunity for us to tackle this. I really hope that's true, and I feel like that's certainly true in Oakland County. To whatever degree we haven't been as cooperative in this effort as we could have been, we're going to be this time, and it just feels like the time is right.
We hear so much about the differences in the region and when we have conversations and where the bickering is and so forth, but you gentlemen have actually come together on Cobo Hall, IETF CCF Center, and having an authority here, the Great Lakes Water Authority, and now there's the Detroit Regional Partnership. How do you see that figuring in to help with this, and you're all part of this now? How do you see that playing into the equation of helping to make more regional issues come together here?
Proudly, I mean, Macomb County has always been supportive of every regional asset. And I know the Detroit Institute of Arts is coming back with a request, and I've already been on board saying, you know, I've been on record saying I'm going to support that initiative and hope that that millage goes through. So there isn't one regional asset. Great Lakes Water Authority with the Convention Center, talking about the Great Lakes Nature Center, which is coming to us from the Detroit Zoological Authority. The arts. We've been very fortunate here in Macomb County to have voters support every time, every regional asset, and we continue to do so. Just to take a step back, one thing I did recognize when Dave came into play, because it was a very big concern of mine, when Brooks Patterson passed away, is now they appointed the new guy to come in. He steps up there, and I come to realize by reading the paper, thank God, Free Press, is that my big concern was, am I still going to be the young guy? And I'll be damned if he wasn't 59 years old. And I went, thank God.
Thanks for mentioning that, Mark.
He was 59. But so what does Carol
you know
do? So what does Carol do?
Brings
She invites
Jason.
the kid from Washington County. Okay, it's like, God. My first time to get up on stage and still be the young guy. What'd you do? You pulled her right off from underneath me. Anyway, so, but again, regional assets are important to Macomb County, and I think the voters have always recognized that by supporting the various regional assets. Go Detroit Institute of Arts, DIA.
So as promised, we are going to have a couple index card questions, and Peter, you've got some over there, and here we go.
Oops.
All right. I'm going to walk over here just to make it a little easier. So lots of good questions from the audience. And the first one is a topic really you've been talking about, and the whole municipal plan. Mayor Duggan characterized it pretty much as a no-brainer that it should sail through the legislature. But where's the opposition coming from? Or is it opposition at this point? Why isn't it done?
Well, unfortunately, some of it's coming from my county and the north end of the county. The representatives up there are hearing what I think is some misinformation about it. The supervisors up there recently passed a resolution saying we oppose the plan. And I said, we don't even have a plan yet. And we've been engaging with them. So at least let us develop a plan before you start attacking it. I think we still have the support in the legislature, but I think there's some issues and some mischaracterizations because the Mayor Duggan is right. This is a no-brainer if you look at what we're simply trying to do. But there's a lot of folks who are, especially in the north end of my county and maybe in Mark's as well, that have organized against this. But we're gonna press forward, and we think that once they understand it and understand we don't have a plan yet, they still get the final say. The voters will still have the final say, and the boards of commission will still have the final say on what it looks like. That maybe we can move that forward. That we have to move that forward, not just maybe.
There's I'm paraphrasing slightly a couple of questions, but what does just to dream a little bit, what does a built-out regional transit system for this area look like? Is it all buses? Are we going to have a subway like Pittsburgh? Or are we going to have light rail like many cities? I was just in Sacramento last weekend where they have a built-out light rail system, et cetera. What's if everything happened the way it should happen, what would it look like?
It's going to change so fast with the technology. You've got people in the room who are greater experts than I am, but within 10 years, maybe 15 years at the most, there's going to be self-driving vehicles that are going to change choices. And so what you want to do is start to layer a platform on to tie the region together to take advantage of the last technology. Denver, for example, built a huge street railway system that has encouraged a huge growth in that region. Columbus landed a $50 million federal grant They are building out something with smart connections, which is the most sophisticated dial-a-ride system in the country, bus lanes where the buses turn the light screen so you can move quickly, and so you get people to make choices in a different way. We'd start out with something that would have bus ridership every 15 minutes at all of our main routes. If you miss a bus and you got to wait a half an hour, and God help you, if you got to make a connection, you got to wait another half hour, people won't choose to use it in the first place. You look at what John Hertel and SMART have done on FAST, enormously successful. Frequent service, good amenities, Wi-Fi on the buses. Detroit's done the same thing with Connect 10. And so the next stage isn't going to be the final solution. The next stage gets us to a credible regional system that can start to grow our region and lays the basis for something that comes next. But right now, we don't even have a basic framework for what comes next.
And I want to add to that. I mean, we're fortunate when you look at the connected corridors. Macomb County probably has the most connected corridors than any other county in the entire country. And we've done that by leveraging technology with our communications transportation department. And with that being said, they're testing vehicles right now, and companies that are putting products into General Motors vehicles, they're testing fully autonomous vehicles on Mound Road right now. In fact, all that technology that's in those vehicles, we're getting data and information back in our communications center that these companies want. And so now we've had to hire law firms to help us try to figure out how do we leverage that information so that we can maybe either attract more companies or even bring in more funds. So what we've got going on in Macomb County provides those opportunities. They can change traffic signals. If there's emergency vehicles we have in Macomb County, that information, if you have technology in your car, once they activate their lights, their sirens, you're going to get that information in your vehicle. We have incredible technology that's being deployed in Macomb County right now that poises us to lead in transportation, even when it's talking about transit and how to get people to and from. So I don't envision it being these big buses into the future or more rail into the future. I think you're going to have more mobility where you're going to have people that are going to be doing the same thing you're seeing from Amazon. If you want food at your house, and they're piloting this right now, you're going to get fresh food delivered to your home in less than 2 hours. I mean, it's incredible. If they could do that for food and products at a store, why can't we do that by moving people, seniors and kids to and from, to jobs or to school? So again, I'm not a futuristic person when it comes to this, but I know that there are companies out there, Ford, General Motors, and as well as our friends that really understand this much better than I do and trying to figure out, how can they help us leverage this technology we have in the transportation mode?
I agree with almost all of that, but I do think that a comprehensive plan, it does include buses, and the mayor mentioned the FAST bus. And we've seen, that's only been in existence for a year. In Oakland County, it goes up Woodward. They have increased ridership on Woodward Avenue 90% in 1 year. So we do know that if you offer reliable, safe, fast transit and economic transit, people will use it. 90% increase on Woodward Avenue in a year. So we do know that, and it's not the total answer, but I do think buses, even with the autonomous vehicles and the way things are going to change in the future, are still going to be a component of it. It won't be the whole system, but I think it is still going to be an important part of the equation.
I did say not more buses. I didn't say let's get rid of the bus.
Well, and I think Mark touched on something really important. I think the new system has to be intelligent. I think it has to be multifaceted with buses, rail, more accessible systems. If you try and get a young person to make a phone call these days I remember the days when you'd call a taxi and you have to wait 45 minutes for them to get there. People have higher expectations, particularly younger people. You really remember that? I do, yeah. I'm old enough. People have higher expectations. You can press a button and a Lyft or an Uber shows up within minutes. That's a higher expectation. But I also think it's a new opportunity for the more rural parts of the communities that don't make sense to be covered by a big old bus driving down the road. I think there are more innovative ways that have been talked about as part of this plan. I think Mark touched on a lot of those things that it sounds like they may be trying out in Macomb County already. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to have a system that includes all these different features.
Great. Very interesting question from a public official in the audience about, we all know that getting anything done with transit requires using the property tax, and there are long-term constraints on the revenue stream to grow and expand transit, as well as deal with all the other things that you have to deal with. Is there any appetite to, quote unquote, unleash the sales tax restriction from the state constitution to help fund transit?
It's interesting. I am a proponent of sales tax as opposed to property taxes personally. You know, what I would hear earlier was that that wasn't something that had, if you're going to be partisan in the discussion, that was going to be a Republican problem. I don't see that. As I talk with people, I think there is more tolerance going forward for sales tax than the property tax, and I think that makes sense. I mean, to me, I would like other people to help pay my bills. So when I go to the casino, buy the casino, or the airport, you know, I kind of like the idea of other people coming in paying the bill. And personally, I would like that to be based on my consumption as opposed to property taxes that don't hit a ton of people who don't pay them and don't own the property. So, I mean, my personal feeling is sales tax makes an awful lot of sense. How we structure it and whatever, I mean, you can always say sales tax and everybody starts biting their fingernails. It's worth exploring, I think, and I certainly think that an impediment to growth is our property taxes. And so legislators that I talk to seem to be reasonably tolerant about that discussion that they weren't 2 years ago.
Right, our problem is a practical legal one. Most of the big regional transit systems in the country have been built off a quarter-cent or a half-cent sales tax, but the Michigan Constitution doesn't allow that. So you'd have to first have a statewide vote to amend the Michigan Constitution. Then you'd have to come back and have a local vote on a local plan. And maybe if we rewound the clock 10 years, we might have been better off to have gone the two-step process. But I think if it were up to us and we had a choice, I think we probably would find the sales tax more palatable if we knew how to solve the legal problem.
Wind it down.
Carol, I'm going to toss it back to you. Thanks to the audience for great questions, and let you wrap it up.
And one last question here. We're going to do round robin real quickly. Come around and start with you, Jason. How optimistic are you about this current plan coming to fruition perhaps this year?
Well, thanks for starting with me on that one, Carol. I'm optimistic about it happening in the near future and the opportunities that we can have for partnership, regardless whether it passes or not.
Dave Coulter?
Yeah, I'm optimistic, or maybe cautiously optimistic, but like I said before, this seems like an opportunity, a historic moment for us to get there. The stars seem to be aligning, and I think it's, I worry that if we don't do it now, the next plan will be 4 years or 6 years from now. You don't get that many bites at this apple, and so you know, I hope it's soon.
Mark, anything you want to add about this plan?
Not so much the plan, because we don't know what the plan is, but the idea that everybody's going to fully connect as a region. Again, I'm not here to try to tell those disconnected communities in Wayne County, Oakland County, or Washtenaw County for that matter, that they need to get connected. Macomb County is fully connected. So I know what it does for the services provided in Macomb County. We are the most efficient part of the smart system. Macomb County is, because there is no disconnects. So with that being said, I am fully supportive, and I look forward to the day when the entire region is fully connected, so we can start looking at these other transit options that might meet the needs of what might be futuristic. So I'm supportive of it, I look forward to it, and I want to continue to be a part of whatever plans are out there.
Warren Evans?
I think your question was, what is my optimism or feeling of it going forward?
Of this-
And I'll take the line from the movie that says, I could tell you, Carol, but then I'd have to kill you.
Spoken like a former sheriff.
All right?
Mr. Mayor,
Well, if
anything?
I'm hearing Mark correctly, if he's going to help us lobby to put the MPA through, I'm optimistic for the first time.
I knew Mike was going to go there some point in time today. It was that lobbying question. Again, you know what the interesting thing about that is? It's not so much the difficulty of getting it passed through the legislature, is it's going to be for some of the commissioners to have the appetite to put it on a ballot.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's going to be the
I
bigger
agree
challenge.
with that. I'm just, right now, I'm
there.
interested in Lansing, but are you going to help us get the bill through Lansing?
I will commit to this. I will not be a deterrent. I will not
No,
get
no,
out there
no,
and push back on it. So, but again, it's not so much the.
Good try,
I'm,
Mayor.
well, no, the simplest way is I don't like to tell other public officials what to do. I don't have discussions with my board of commissioners. I mean, most people find this odd. I don't count to 7. I never did that even when I was a sheriff. I allow the opportunity for the plan to move forward, whatever it is I've been looking for, and allow them to make their decision, good, bad, or indifferent. I may disagree or agree, but I don't make phone calls and tell people, here's what I want you to do. I've never lobbied for that. So it's outside my comfort zone to call a commissioner or a state representative on either side of the issue and say, here's what you need to do, and here's how you should do it. It's going to be, I'm just going to tell you, I've never done that. And so it's going to be difficult for me to do that.
You did it for the RTA bill, Mark. You went up and testified in front of the legislature to pass the RTA bill.
Again, I went and testified for it. I didn't try to tell them individually, here's what you need
So
to
go
do.
testify for us.
So, on the FTA.
You're lobbying for local control. We should all be for local control.
Again, yeah, you got many communities in Macomb County. If you want them to come forward to testify, allow it to. My problem, Mike, is I'm just going to. You went in a direction that's going to cause me a challenge. There isn't one community member in Macomb County, not one commissioner that has an appetite for that coming their way. So for me to get out there and
They
start,
don't want local control.
what they don't want is this coming back their way, where they're going to increase their taxes more than what they're already paying. I'm telling you, they're satisfied with the system they're getting from SMART, and what they're saying is they don't understand why every county isn't doing the same thing Macomb did to get the baseline. In other words, every county has an option right now.
All right, well,
Oakland
my
County,
optimism
Wayne
was
County,
short-lived.
and Washington County has the option to put this on the ballot to do what Macomb County has done right now without that
But
legislation.
the good news, Carol, is that there's a lot of people in this room, because you've assembled a very impressive group of people, that we do need to speak up. And so that's my challenge to the folks in this room. We need you to talk to your legislators. We need you to call the governor. She's on board. But call your legislators. Speak up for the organizations that you represent, because if we don't, it's not just the five of us. You know, all we can do is debate this stuff. But if we don't have advocates in the communities, this isn't going to happen. So I would encourage all of you, if we've convinced you, to speak up and let Lansing know that we need the Municipal Partnership Act passed pronto.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time to talk about this important issue. I know we didn't solve everything, but I think we cleared up hopefully some issues, about what was going on here for people in the room here. Our thanks to Mayor Duggan, Wayne County Executive Evans, Macomb County Executive Hackle, Oakland County Executive Coulter, and Chairman Jason Morgan. If once was not enough, reminder, you can catch this again on Michigan Matters, airing 11:30 this Sunday on CBS 62. And stay tuned, we have more Breakfast Club forums coming up and more to come about that. So thank you all again for being here, and safe travels back to home, work, or school, wherever you're going. So thank you again.
Thank you. Gentlemen?